Special Olympics health programs. With more than 1.6 million free health examinations conducted in more than 130 countries, the Special Olympics Healthy Athletes Program offers health services and information to athletes in dire need. In the process, Special Olympics has become the largest global public health organization dedicated to serving people with intellectual disabilities.
Special Olympics health programs provide opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to achieve the health care that they need. Special Olympics International created the Healthy Community Initiative in response to the U.S. Surgeon General's call to action for the health disparities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
The United States Surgeon General stated, individuals with a developmental disability are more likely to receive inappropriate and inadequate treatment or be denied health care altogether. Children, youth, and adults with developmental disabilities receive fewer routine health examinations, fewer immunizations, less mental health care, less prophylactic oral health care, and fewer opportunities for physical exercise and athletic achievement than do other Americans. Those with communication difficulties are especially at greater risk for poor nutrition, overmedication, injury, and abuse.
Special Olympics Florida started its Healthy Athletes programs in 1996 when it began to recognize the severe health disparities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Special Olympics Florida was able to begin the Healthy Community programs to expand care coordination services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities.
It all began in the 1950s when Eunice Kennedy Shriver saw how unjustly and unfairly people with intellectual disabilities were treated, and many of these children never had a place to play. She decided to take action. Her vision began to take shape as she started offering summer day camps for young people with intellectual disabilities in her own backyard. Today, the Special Olympics global reach expands to millions of athletes around the world. From a backyard summer camp for people with intellectual disabilities to a global movement, Special Olympics has been changing lives and attitudes for almost 50 years.
Volunteers are essential to everything we do with Special Olympics, including our healthy communities and healthy athletes. We need our volunteers in order to do all of the work that we do.
I started volunteering with Special Olympics while I was a student. It was really special during that time to volunteer with Special Olympics because not only was I able to relate information that I learned as a student, but I was able to relate everything that I've learned from Special Olympics back through my classes and back through stuff I was learning to, for my career. Before I worked with Special Olympics, I didn't have any previous experience working with special needs and that population. Special Olympics really takes into advantage, I guess, the whole person instead of just the disability. It really focuses on what the athlete can do instead of what they can't do. So volunteering at a healthy community screening, usually we have a bunch of different stations. They go through the stations, they learn all sorts of stuff about bone density, physical activity, hand hygiene, hydration, all sorts of stuff, which is really awesome because it's not focused on one specific aspect. They really get a general consensus for being healthy and relating that back to your own life. This is where they come, where they can really become aware of all their health needs and disparities, and we can actually show them step by step how they can improve, how they can be healthier, and how they can really improve their quality of life.
Special Olympics Healthy Athletes is to make sure that the athletes that are participating within the games are literally healthy enough to participate. We want to make sure that they don't have any issues that would cause them to get sick and be hospitalized. Especially with Special Smiles case, there are athletes out there with infections in their mouth that can go systemic, that if it's been left untreated, it could actually kill them. And we don't want our athletes to be sick or unhealthy. Healthy athlete volunteers are important to Special Olympics because we are the people that are doing the jobs to screen the athletes, to make sure they're healthy. Being around the athletes is wonderful because they give you so much spirit and enthusiasm towards life because of their energies that they put into what they're doing is amazing.
Special Olympics uses the 10 Commandments of communicating with persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities, developed by and adapted from many sources. Being a great volunteer is one thing, but you have to know how to communicate with a person with intellectual and developmental disabilities before you can be that great volunteer. 1. Speak directly to the person rather than through a family member, accompanying staff, or companion. 2. Offer to shake hands when introduced. People with limited hand use or an artificial limb can usually shake hands, and offering the left hand is an acceptable greeting. 3. Always identify yourself and others who may be with you when working with someone with a visual disability. When conversing in a group, remember to identify the person to whom you are speaking. When screening or in an educational setting, describe what you are doing to the person before you begin. 4. If you offer assistance, wait until the offer is accepted. Then listen or ask for instructions. 5. Treat adults as adults. Address people with disabilities by their first names only when extending that same familiarity to all others. 6. Do not lean against or hang on someone's wheelchair. Bear in mind that people with disabilities treat their chairs as extensions of their bodies. 7. Listen attentively when talking with people who have difficulty speaking and wait for them to finish. Ask short questions that require short answers or a nod of the head. Never pretend to understand. Instead, repeat what you have understood and allow the person to respond. 8. Place yourself at eye level when speaking with someone in a wheelchair or on crutches. Never patronize people in wheelchairs by patting them on the head or shoulder like a child. 9. Tap a person who has a hearing disability on the shoulder or wave your hand to get his or her attention. Look directly at the person and speak clearly, slowly, and expressively to establish if the person can read your lips. Never shout to a person. Just speak in a normal tone of voice. 10. Don't be embarrassed if you happen to use common expressions such as "see you later" or "did you hear about this?" that seems to relate to a person's disability.
Every volunteer that joins with Healthy Athletes goes through a training process. We start with the history of Special Olympics and go through the particular discipline so that they're able to man any one of the stations during Healthy Athletes and provide each individual athlete with the specific care that they need. Healthy Athletes provides an avenue for volunteers to start at a very local level as a general volunteer and to kind of graduate into different levels, going to become a clinical director, from a clinical director locally, statewide. They could also become a national clinical director or a regional clinical director, and even sometimes be chosen to provide care at one of our World Games. Healthy Athletes has definitely helped our athletes with providing care for them after the events by going through the screening process, and we've seen that they've come back to events with greater care and greater abilities. I have found over the years that I've volunteered with Healthy Athletes that we've been able to open a door for a lot of athletes' health care, whether it be Fit Feet or Opening Eyes or Special Smiles, where they have never had care in those areas ever before. I have to admit that once I started with Healthy Athletes, which was about 10 years ago, I really caught the bug. And I tell everybody when they come out that you just have to come out one time and you'll get hooked. And you become close friends, you become part of the family. And that's how I've always looked at Special Olympics, as a big family.
I am a Special Olympics athlete from Pinellas County. Healthy Athletes is like sort of like a health care for Special Olympics athletes. I've gotten glasses, reading distance glasses, and volleyball goggles. I'm able to see what my target is more clearly, and I don't have to worry about my teammates knocking them off my face. I think for a lot of these guys that this is one of their only health care providing, and what they do is phenomenal.
It's such a wonderful opportunity for students to engage and volunteer with Special Olympics, especially in the healthcare fields. It gives them an opportunity to get hands-on experience and gain a level of comfort with people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that can carry them through their career. When our student volunteers graduate, they become the professionals that can confidently accept people with intellectual and developmental disabilities into their practices, clinics, and hospitals. This is extremely important to create the next generation of healthcare providers and eliminate or at least decrease the health disparities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So thank you for volunteering.